Welcome to the Deep Leadership Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Nadine Zeinoun. Nadine is a certified executive, emotional intelligence, and team coach. She is also the host of the popular TV show and podcast, Shine Your Light. After more than 15 years of managerial experience in the corporate pharmaceutical sector, she began her work coaching and training leaders and teams. She helps leaders become more emotionally intelligent, meet their goals, and build highly engaged teams. I am excited to have her on the show to learn more how we can all harness emotional intelligence to be more effective as leaders. So Nadine, welcome to the show.
Thank you, John. Thank you. It's great to be here.
It is an honor to meet you, and I'm excited to talk about the subject of emotional intelligence. I think it's really important for leaders, and you being the expert, I'm just excited to have you on the show.
Thanks. I'm really, really honored to be here, actually, and I'm excited to share whatever information I have to the leaders out there.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. So first of all, tell us about the work you do with leaders and teams. Tell us about your business.
Okay. So I work with either the leader themselves, so a leader who leads a team, or with like the executive team. So it depends on what they're going through. So sometimes the leader is going through some difficulties in terms of connecting with their team, in terms of engaging their team, in terms of making people happy and at the same time performing well. So I work with them to help them develop their own emotional intelligence and conversational intelligence so that they can create that connection and keep people happy and know how to really connect and inspire the people there so that people are engaged and they're performing at their best. And when I work with a team, it's more because the team is not really functioning at their best. So there are a little bit of tension between people, and this is interfering with the team performance. So I work with the team as a whole, and we do team coaching, which is really very pleasant and very nice. But at the same time, it allows the team to know how to connect together on one purpose, and also know how to work together when conflict arises and when challenges are met. So it's really for me, it's very motivational and rewarding when I do that.
Yeah. And I would imagine just having someone with an outside perspective can help. Because sometimes teams, we get in a funk, right? We sort of can't see the forest through the trees, and it's good to have a outside voice to help us sort of guide us and see maybe, you guys are really on the same team here. You're on the same side of things. You just have a different way of expressing it. And sometimes it's good to have an outside resource to help you work out those conflicts.
And John, I think the power of team coaching is because, as a coach, we don't really interfere with the system of what's going on because it's not our job to lead things. It's their job to find the solution. However, what happens is, I think a main reason why teams get into conflict is because nobody surfaces the conflict. So it's there, people feel it, they feel the tension, it's impacting everyone. However, people are scared to bring it up. They're scared. There's that elephant in the room and everyone pretends it's not there. So when the coach is there, it's very important to raise awareness about that elephant in the room and to discuss it openly and find a way that is, it's a positive way of dealing with this situation where everyone understands each other and everyone is heard so that they can find the best solution for the team.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I take most of my experience, what I found is that when you have task conflict, in other words, when you're battling back and forth with ideas, that's actually a great thing. And it shows a team that's really working together and they have trust and they're willing to be vulnerable. But it's the personality conflicts. That's where it's really troublesome. And that's when a team can get halted, when when it's less about battling over the best ideas. It's more, and when it becomes personality driven, that's when the problems occur. And I think that's when you need really help to make sure that stuff is brought to the surface and it's not, that you
I
can
totally
build
agree.
trust.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's fantastic. So what made you shift your focus to leadership development and team coaching after working for years in the corporate pharmaceutical sector?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Now I'm going to try to make it as short as possible. But yeah, actually, when I left the pharmaceutical industry, it wasn't really, I was kind of like forced. It was like the logical thing to do. So it's not that I did it very openly and I took this step purposefully. No, I didn't, to be honest. But I had my third child. And at that time, I was still in Lebanon. So I was the brand manager for the Middle East. So I was managing 17 countries, a lot of traveling. So it was getting difficult to have a work-life balance, with 3 children at home. So I was, going through this conflict. Should I leave? Should I not leave? And luckily, the company that I worked with, they acquired another pharmaceutical company. And you know how it is when acquisitions happen. People, there's turmoil. Are we going to have a job? Are we not going to have a job? So it was the best time. And they offered people, packages if they wanted to leave. So it was the best time for me to actually take that step and leave. And that's how I did it. And I decided to stay home with my kids and, be a good mom, if you want. So, and I tried that and I was really happy. But at the same time, I felt that there was something more that I needed to do. And that's where, I started reflecting because I got time. When you're busy at work, you don't get time to reflect and sit back and think of where you're heading and what are you doing. And I kind of, this reflection led me to reconnect with a dream that I had when I was a young girl. Because, I grew up in a civil war and there was a lot of problems, a lot of conflict around me. And I hated that. And it left a lot of, if you want, like a mission inside me that, one day I always saw myself like one day I'm going to be someone who's going to bring people together and not make people get into conflict. So I wanted to resolve conflicts. I wanted to create harmony. So I reconnected with that. And, I fell upon emotional intelligence and I started reading more and I got certified and I fell in love with the topic. And I saw how much this, emotional intelligence creates harmony in this world. And that's how, I got into this journey of coaching.
That's fantastic. And it's interesting because we have a lot of guests on here that are coaches, and it's always interesting to hear the journey. And almost everyone gets to it in a different way. But every person that I've talked to has a passion for it, and they, for however their career goes, it's boom. They find that's their North Star. They really are passionate towards doing what they're doing with respect to leadership development and coaching. So I was like, that's what you found. You found your true north as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So emotional intelligence, this fun subject. So tell us a little bit about what it is and why it's so important for leaders.
Okay. So simply said, emotional intelligence is simply understanding your own emotions. So starting with you, it always starts with you, understanding your own emotions, understanding how your emotions drive your behaviors, your decisions. Because, whether we admit it or not, always behind every decision, behind every behavior, there's an emotion underlying. Mm-hmm. We might not be aware of it, but it doesn't mean that it's not there. So emotional intelligence. So I help the leaders better understand what are the emotions that are driving these behaviors, these decisions. And because, decisions and behaviors they're going to contribute to our success and to our relationships. So they're extremely important for a leader. So imagine I'm a leader and my emotion is driving me and I have no control of what's going on. Surely this will not help me become a successful leader or the successful leader that I want to be. And that's why, especially nowadays, because nowadays, change is very rapid. It's happening very rapid. And again, whether we admit it or not, in a situation where change is happening, our minds and our brains feel uncertainty. And uncertainty brings up, unpleasant emotions that we don't really like and we don't want to cope with. And we try to ignore them. So what happens is that all these emotions, even if we ignore them, they're there and they're going to impact how we think, how we behave, and what we decide to do. So really, in this time, leaders need emotional intelligence if they really want to navigate the changes that are happening all around the world.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I've been leading for over 30 years, and I would say the pace of change seems to be at an exponential rate. It keeps growing. And, I was talking to somebody the other day, and it used to be like, we would do one change project every year. That would be something we would do. Like, we're going to put an ERP system in. All right. And we all go do this thing for a year. So we had like the John Cotter change model. We all followed it, right? It was easy. But now you have 10 projects going on, and you have the economy, and you have COVID, and you have, remote work. And it seems like it comes at us a lot faster. And so as to your point, the emotions as a leader, it's hitting us all the time, and it's more and more difficult, I think, as the world is moving faster and faster. So I think you do have to get a handle on this emotional side of the way we think and how that affects our decisions and how it affects how we treat others. I think you're right. It's a big part.
And don't forget that we have people with us. So as leaders, we're leading a team. We're leading an organization. So like we have emotions, imagine, how many people out there and how many emotions you are bombarded with every single day. So again, if you don't understand their emotions, if you cannot connect with them, you cannot really know how they're feeling and what's going on for them, you can't engage them. You can't inspire them. You can't create that deep relationship. And that's what's missing. That's what's missing these days. People don't really connect. People don't really listen to each other. And that's the essence of emotional intelligence, is being able to recognize that you're going through some difficult emotion and, to be able to connect with you and listen to you truly so that I understand what's the battle you're going through. And how can I support you? So that's the essence. And again, this is all emotional intelligence. It's empathy. It's connecting with other people's emotions.
So if you've got a leader that has got a high emotional intelligence and has really focused on developing that, what do they look like? How do they act? What are they likely to do in their organization? What does it look like when someone has a high emotional intelligence?
Now, first of all, the way they come off to people is that they're like calm, composed people. So you don't feel like they panic or, they lose control. So you always find like they are in control of things. This is one of the things that you first observe. Second, you observe how well they connect with others. Because as we said, the basic principle of emotional intelligence is, the social aspect of it, because it impacts the way we deal with people. So these people usually have good relationships, and it's not superficial relationships. And I'd like to highlight that, because sometimes you are good at talking to people and, having fun with people, but you don't really connect with them deeply. So that's not emotional intelligence. That's one part of it, but it's not the whole story, because emotional intelligence is about really creating that trust, creating that in-depth, relationship where I feel safe with you and I'm willing to be vulnerable in front of you. And that's key, because that is what creates very good relationships. And not only relationships, that's what creates inspiration. That's why you inspire me, because, I would want to do anything for you if I trust you. And this is the essence of conversational intelligence, by the way. So the way conversational intelligence and emotional intelligence link is that it's basically the use of the conversation. So the words and, the nonverbal expressions, the use of that conversation to bring out the emotion of trust in the other. So the conversational intelligence is all based on whether I connect with you and I'm able to create trust or not. And why do I want that as a leader? Because trust opens up people's prefrontal cortex, which is the area in the brain here behind your forehead. And so this is kind of like the CEO of our brain. And this is the wise part of our brain. So we can access our wisdom, we can access our creativity, our problem-solving abilities when our prefrontal cortex is activated. And it's activated under trust. So emotional intelligence allows me to connect with you so that you feel safe and you will be able to trust me as a leader. And that's when I can get the best out of you as a team member, because you trust me. Why? Because there's oxytocin there in my, it's the hormone that is activated when there is trust. And the oxytocin allows me to be open, allows me to take risks, allows me to empathize, to connect, to want to try new things, to share information and ideas, to play around with things. And that's what you need when you want creativity and innovation. You need that to be present among the team.
It makes so much sense. And just the way I've seen people work is when there is high levels of trust, people are willing to be vulnerable, people are willing to take chances, they're willing to be creative. Here's the challenge, though, at least in my experience in 22 years in the corporate world, is that, let's see, how do I say this in the nicest way? There wasn't a lot of emotional intelligence in
at that time.
Managers that in my organization. It was always about the results. It was there was a severe lack of empathy. I would say in many senior managers. I was at the vice president level, and I saw a lot of vice presidents would. They'd say, well, we want to save costs. Let's outsource the call centers. Let's outsource the production. Let's get rid of people. And it was just like little empathy as to the plight of others within the same organization, their own same organization. So the question I would have for you is this something that anyone can develop? Can anyone develop emotional intelligence? Or is it set aside for those few empathetic people that are out there?
Oh, beautiful question. Now, I'm not going to tell you that it's like so easy to do that, especially empathy, because it takes time. However, if the decision is made that I want to do that, then you can. And that's the beautiful thing about emotional intelligence. So unlike, intelligence per se, IQ, we reach a level where we're more or less, we're stagnant, more or less, okay? Although now we know that we can also grow that, but emotional intelligence is something that can grow with time, with practice, with maturity. And empathy, you chose the most difficult part. So I know that empathy is not an easy thing to develop. And you know what? Sometimes I do understand the pressure that, executives are under. You mentioned the results. Remember, there's like a board of directors there, or maybe upper management, just bombarding the person, you need to get the results. We need the results. People out there are waiting, so we want results. So the focus is on results. And there, the leader he wants to satisfy upper management or the board of directors, but at the same time, he can't do it alone. He needs this team to function at their best. And that's where the leader needs to juggle, and it creates a lot of overwhelm. You see, this is where their emotions start. So that overwhelm, what happens is, because they're not very emotionally self-aware, they don't notice that overwhelm that they're going through and the stress that they're going through. And what they channel that into being harsh on people. So even if someone is so empathetic in their life, when they're under this stress, they lose their empathy. And they start, bombarding people with putting a lot of pressure on them, asking for too much, hiring expectations, and not really understanding people because they're scared. There's fear of not being able to get the results. Fear of failure is there, and it's influencing their behaviors, and they don't know. And then, suddenly people start hating them. They're alone. This even makes them hate themselves, maybe doubt themselves, whether they know. So there are all of these are emotions. You see how the emotions are taking the lead for their behaviors. And this is what we call an emotion-driven behavior. So it's not me deciding, it's my emotion deciding for me on how I should behave. And that's the worst, because it's going to take me to a road that doesn't look like me, simply. It doesn't look like the leader themselves or who they want to be as leaders.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think when we're focused on the results and we don't have the patience or the time, we don't think we have the time to really get people on board with what we're trying to do. Then we get into this, like you said, we're more directive, and we're just get it done. I don't have time for excuses. I need this tomorrow, so this. We were reacting emotionally to the pressures that we face. And so instead of motivating our team to be excited about working on something, they feel the pressure, and then the team's not motivated. They feel like they're just, and it's sort of like we care about the results, but the way we approached it, we shut the entire organization down just out of fear and out of sometimes micromanagement, sometimes just unrealistic expectations and threats and what have you. And at least I saw all that in my corporate days.
Yeah.
Is the pressures created a lot of negative impact to the organization.
Absolutely.
Whereas the people that you need to get all this stuff done, you need them to be positive and excited and motivated, highly motivated. And so we do just the opposite, and it's because of the emotional side of things.
Yeah, exactly. We're not controlling the decisions ourselves. It's the emotion driving us, and we're not aware. That's the problem.
Yeah.
We're not aware. So that's why the first step to developing your emotional intelligence is you need to become aware that, why am I behaving this way? This is not how I want to be. And, reflecting. And that's what we do in coaching. We give that executive a place where they can reflect. And by, asking them what we call, powerful questions, they're not like, out of the world questions, but they're very strong, simple questions that make them reflect on what's going on. Why am I behaving this way? This is who I want to be. Why am I behaving in a way that's totally different from how I want to be or who I want to be? And that reflection is so powerful because it creates so much awareness. And then when you get that awareness, the energy that comes with it drives the change. And that's why it's so amazing. The results are so amazing. And I love what you said, how we create the fear in the organization unconsciously. Right. And fear is the opposite of trust. Remember how we said that the trust, creates the oxytocin and it opens up the prefrontal cortex? Well, fear is just the opposite. It creates cortisol in our mind, and the cortisol shuts down the prefrontal cortex. So I don't have access to it anymore. And I only, use my reptilian brain, which is here behind my neck, which is the survival mode. So I start, working as if I'm in survival mode. So I just want to, get by and survive. Will I do my best? Of course not. Will I think things through? No, of course not. I'm just going to do it so that, nobody kills me and nobody throws me out of the company. That's it. Nothing. So there's no engagement, no motivation. All that is gone.
Yeah. It's interesting. I have a friend of mine. He's been on the show before. He's a former college lacrosse coach. And he said that a lot of coaches at the end of a game will call timeout and bring their team in and say, you do this. And they try to micromanage the last few plays of the game. Uh-huh. And he said, always create a lot of stress, and it tightens up the players. And everybody was fearful. He said he would do just the opposite. He would call timeout. He'd call his guys over and say, hey, you guys know what to do. Have a good time. Enjoy it. This is, this is your time to shine. Enjoy these next.
I love that.
And it was more like to be more relaxed and in those final minutes, because like you said, fear changes how we act versus being positive and knowing that you have a coach that trusts you. I trust you. You've shown me what you can do for an entire year. Why would I tell you what to do in the last minute of a game? Right?
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, it does. And as you said, I'm gonna repeat something you said, which I really love. Fear changes how we see things. Yes. Yeah. And what we do, it changes reality. In conversational intelligence, we say, fear changes reality. So, and what do we mean by that? It means that the same thing can happen. The same thing. You can tell me the same thing in the same way. And if I am afraid of you, I'm going to misinterpret it and take it in a negative way. Whereas if I trust you, I'm going to create so many good reasons why you told me that. So imagine, my interpretation of reality is totally different if I am in trust versus fear.
Yeah.
And this always amazes me.
We tend to be Yeah, I mean, if we build trust with employees, then even if we screw up, there's a little bit of forgiveness in there, right?
Yeah.
And I've always
There's
noticed that.
empathy. I
Yeah,
understand why.
yeah. So we even, I've noticed that if I build a strong relationship with an employee, even if I mess up, they are like, that's not John's normal behavior. He's under stress, and then there's a little bit of forgiveness. Whereas if I'm always on them and I screw up, they're just like, well, there goes Rennie again.
Yeah.
Messing up.
Even
So,
if you do a good thing, they're going to misinterpret it because they're already afraid of you, and they're high on cortisol, so their brain is filled with cortisol, so they're going to misinterpret, or they're going to interpret it in a negative way versus assuming the best when they are in trust. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's interesting. We talked a little bit about this, is that, results. Everybody wants results. We got to get performance. We got to get results. If you are an emotionally intelligent leader, will you get better results? Will you see better results? Or is this just a touchy-feely, nice thing to have?
Beautiful question, because that's what people think. When we say emotions, we go into this touchy-feely thing. Of course not. Because, if you're an emotionally intelligent leader, you're hard on the results, but you're soft on the people. So you do want to achieve the results, and you never accept, excuses for not being, up to the standard or up to the expectation. However, you are understanding. So when somebody, like, for example, and this happens a lot, I see people like somebody who's a high performer, they go through difficult times. Everyone goes through difficult times, maybe personal issues that they have, and, their performance goes down. If I'm an emotionally intelligent leader, I would be curious. What happened?
Yeah.
This person was performing, here, and now they're here. Instead of judging the here as a lazy, someone who is disconnected, someone who's lazy, who doesn't disengage, who doesn't care, instead of me judging them, okay, I would say, okay, wait a second. This guy wasn't like this all the time. What's going on? He must be going through something difficult. Let me connect with them and see, what's going on. Tell me, how can I support you? And just by the fact that you understood them, believe me, their performance will go back up. Even if they're still in whatever personal difficulty they're going through or challenge they're going through, they would shape up because they felt that connection. They felt that you care. And this would motivate them and fill them with oxytocin so that they would be able to pick up and move ahead.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I wrote in my first book about a leader I had that I was a young engineer and I failed. I'm at a major product failure in a test lab. And when I called him, I was young and I thought, well, I'll probably be fired for this. And I remember calling him and telling him that this test failed. And he recognized what I was trying to do had never been done before. And so the likelihood of failure was very high. But as a young engineer, I just expected that I had to perform. It had to, I had to deliver. And I remember he said, when I told him that we failed at the lab, he said, well, do you know what happened? And I said, at that point, I said, yeah, I know why we failed. He said, can you fix it? And I said, yes. And he said, well, get back here. Let's get it redesigned. Let's get back to the lab. And I just remember thinking, wow, just having a leader that had my back and was willing to recognize that he had a high performer that just had a failure, but it was a failure that normal people would have in a high pressure situation like this. And despite the fact that we spent a lot of money and we didn't have any positive results from that test, he had my back. And it, like you said, that the positive emotions that I had was like, I'll run through a wall for this guy, because he had my back when things went wrong. He was curious. Wow. He wasn't like, let's get rid of Rennie and get somebody else in here. He was willing to give me a second shot at it.
I love that. Yeah, that's a beautiful example. This is what we're talking about. This is it. Exactly. Yeah. So I love it. And I love how he asked you. You see, he didn't blame you. He didn't judge you. Okay. On the contrary, he asked questions. So he was, and when you ask questions, you allow someone to gain access to their prefrontal cortex. So he said, do you know what went wrong? Do you know how to fix it? So we call this like, feed forward rather than feedback. So I'm not giving you feedback. We're feeding forward. So we're looking forward ahead into what's going to work in the future and how can we make this better. So very smart guy. So very smart leader, very emotionally intelligent leader, I must say.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's like nearly 30 years ago. And like, and that's something that I always remember, it's, and I think I often say that we as leaders, we want to be memorable to the people, everyone that works for us, and in a positive way, not in a negative way. And like I remember this guy, 30 years later, just by the way he made me feel in that moment of when I was very vulnerable, when I did something, when I screwed up. And I think that's high emotional intelligence, from someone that really knew people. And I like what you talked about, the idea of curiosity. And we don't have enough of that. We tend to point fingers and blame faster than we ask the questions, why, what happened, what can we do about it, type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. We always think that we have the answers. So, and that's part of how we are, how our brain is wired. We don't like uncertainty. So our brain wants to find the answer. And it's easier for our brain to make up an answer rather than to just be curious and ask. So, and that's it. If I'm able to, this is another part of emotional intelligence, if I'm able to notice that I have jumped to a conclusion and stop myself and get into curiosity rather than judgment, that's amazing. I will develop my empathy. Because that's the first thing that stands in the way of my empathy is me having the right answer. And that's what judgment is all about. I have the right answer about you. I have the right opinion about you. I have the right opinion about the situation. So me being right, which is very addictive. That's what stands in the way of my empathy.
Yes. Yeah, such an important point. I love it. That's such a good point. So we really just scratched the surface where we've been talking about emotional intelligence, a lot of things here, a lot of great things we covered. What final message would you like to leave with our listeners about this subject?
I want to tell them that they shouldn't be scared. Okay, so if they notice that they do some of the things that we were discussing, it's okay. I was there one day, I was really low on emotional intelligence and I couldn't really connect with people's emotions. But that's okay. As long as we acknowledge that this is how we're behaving and this is not how we want to behave, that's the first step. So just seek help. Go get a coach, get a mentor, seek help. And you can do it. If I was able to work on myself, it means that everyone is able to work on themselves. It's just a matter of taking that decision and, allowing yourself to try again and again and again. Because don't think that there's a magic button that, you're going to press and then, I'm going to become emotionally intelligent. No, it's a very long journey. It's tedious. It takes a lot of hard work and awareness, but you can get there. And it's really, really very rewarding once you do.
I love it. Yeah, I agree. And again, I've seen very successful businesses being run by highly emotionally intelligent leaders. And I think, leaders, if you're listening in, you're like, oh man, this is really resonating. I really highly encourage you to dig into the subject a lot more. And Nadine is a perfect resource for that. I was going to say, Nadine, how can listeners find out more about you, your podcast, and the services that you offer?
They can go to my website, which is simply nadinezeinoun.com, and you're probably going to put the link there. Yeah. And you know what? I would love to offer your listeners a free coaching session. So if anything that we said resonated with them and they felt that, oh my God, I need to work on this, I would love to offer them a free 45-minute coaching session to work on that particular subject. So, and the way they can do that, if they go to my website, there's a book in a call. Just go there and book in a call with me, and I'd love to support them. And I'm also on social media, so whether Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, so they can find me there under Coach Nadine Zeinoun.
This is fantastic. And again, listeners, you just heard it again, another free resource that we offer here on Deep Leadership. Nadine is willing to If this is resonating with you and you say, wow, I need to start this process, I need to think about it, she's offering you a free session to sit down with her and dig into this a little bit further. So again, this podcast, we give you a lot of different things to think about in leadership. We give you a taste of something that maybe that you haven't heard before, or maybe you didn't dive into a lot of detail in emotional intelligence before. Now you've heard about it. Maybe it's resonating with you. This is a chance to link up in the show notes. There's a link there and connect with her, connect with Nadine, and find out like, hey, how can I apply this in my life? How can I become a better leader using this emotional intelligence tool to unleash really your team and the positive emotions inside your team? So I highly encourage you to click on the links below and connect with Nadine. She's going to help you out and help you understand this subject a lot more. Nadine, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I learned a lot. I enjoyed talking with you, and I know our listeners are going to enjoy this, and I know they're going to connect with you as well to find out more. This has been a fantastic conversation.
Thank you so much, John, and thank you for your input and all your beautiful questions, because that's what really highlighted the essence of emotional intelligence.
Absolutely. It's that curiosity, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thanks again. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for listening to Deep Leadership. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and share so we can continue to build a world with better bosses. Until next time, this is John Rennie saying take care and lead well.